Builders, how are you doing today? My name is Laszlo, and today I'm going to talk about direct integration between API gateway and step functions. So, when would you need something like this? So, for example, if you have a step functions workflow that you want to initiate by sending a request somehow from device or a server or any client, you would need to expose somehow this step functions workflow. And you can do that through Amazon API Gateway, which will be in front of the step functions workflow. So this would work by sending, for example, a post request to Amazon API Gateway endpoints. Then API Gateway would directly invoke the step function service and execute the workflow. In this case, we are going to have a simple workflow for processing an order. It will validate the order, process the payment, and then start the order fulfillment. So let's see how this works in reality. So here I am in the AWS console, and I'm going to show you 3 Lambda functions. These will be part of the step functions workflow, and I just quickly want to show them. Let's start with the order validation function. This function will be the first one to be called, and basically the purpose is to validate the order. In this case, I'm just going to check if the product is a book, and if it's a book, then the validation will be successful, otherwise it will fail. Of course, in reality, you would build a much more complex order validation function. And it will return an order status. You see, this is be a status success or failed. The second function will be the payment processing function. This is very similar to the other one. Normally you would handle the payment here, but I'm just going to check if the payment method is credit card. If it's credit card, payment processing will be successful, otherwise it will fail. This is again just for an example. It's not a real payment processing function. Then the third one, it will be the order fulfillment, and the order fulfillment will be the last one to be called, and it will just return order fulfillment the function triggered. This will not return an order status like the other 2 functions. Okay, so these are the Lambda functions. Let's go back to the console and let's create a step functions workflow for this. So I'm going to create a new state machine. I'm going to choose Express because this supports both synchronous and asynchronous executions, and it's also cheaper. So let's start by dragging here a Lambda function. And this is going to be my, let's go and choose here the order validation function. Okay. After that, I want to add the flow. This will be a choice flow. And here I'm going to check if here in the choice rules, I'm going to check if add condition, and here I'm going to check if the order status is success, and is equal to, or match a string, let's say success. Okay. And here we're going to invoke another Lambda function. Let's drag the Lambda here. And this is going to be my next Lambda function, which is going to be the payment processing function. Okay. Let's also do some changes here. So I want to rename this one so I know what is this all about. So I'm going to call this order validation. The other one I'm going to call here payment processing, like this. Okay. And here I need to add again a choice state if payment processing was successful. Here again, I'm going to edit it and add a condition. Again, order status should be match a string success, save condition. Okay. Add another Lambda function here, and this one is going to be the order fulfillment, and let's also call it order fulfillment. Okay. And here what I want to do, I want also to add a fail state. This is going to be here. So here, if the payment processing is successful, we go to order fulfillment, otherwise we're going to fail it. And I'm going to make again here the order validation to go to the fail state if this is not successful. So I will have to edit this and let's bring it to the fail. So if order status is not success, fail. If payment processing is not success, fail. Okay. So this should be okay. Let's click on next. Here is our code that has been generated, this Amazon States language code. Let's click on next. I'm going to call this order processing state machine. I'm going to create a new role for it. It's okay. Create state machine. Okay. This takes a few seconds, and when it's done, I'm going to start an execution. Let's see how it works. First of all, I would have to provide it a book. Sorry, not book, but product. And I'm not going to make it book. I will just leave it like this. And the payment method, it's going to be, let's add card and start execution. Let's see what happens. So it went to the choice state because you see order validation, the Lambda function successfully executed, but it returned an order status of failed. And then a choice state triggered the fail state here. Okay, now let's execute it again, but this time give it a valid product, which will be book. Start execution again. This time it went further, it went to the payment processing, but the payment processing failed because it expected a credit card, not just card. So let's give it a new execution, and this time let's give it credit card. Start execution. and now it should be successful. Let's see. I'm not sure why it takes so long. Usually it doesn't take so long to execute step functions, but yeah. So let's see each state. Order validation is successful. It goes to choice state. Then payment processing is also successful, goes to the order fulfillment, and this is triggered, and the overall execution status is succeeded. If we go back to the state machine, we can see the logs here, the execution logs. The first two were failed, the third one was succeeding. Okay, so this is our state machine which we want to trigger from API gateway. Now, for that we are going to need an IAM role. That IAM role will allow API gateway to invoke the step function state machine. So let's go to IAM, the IAM service, and let's create a role. In this role, here roles, create a role, and when you create the role, you have to select the trusted entity type, which in this case it should be API gateway. So it's the first one here, because API gateway will be the one that's going to be trusted. So let's click on next. And here we have by default, it adds the Amazon API Gateway push to CloudWatch logs policy, but we need to add another one. For that, we're going to need to save this. So let's call this API Gateway to step functions role. And let's click on create here. Okay, let me find it. API gateway to step functions, this one, and I need to add the permissions. Let's attach a policy, and I'm going to add the step functions full access. So let's give it step functions full access. Okay, add permission. So this is our role. This is sufficient. We need to copy this RM. This is something that we need to provide to the API gateway. So I'm saving this RM, and now I have to go to API gateway. So let me see, where is API gateway? Let's open it. And I'm going to create a brand new API. Just quickly create API, REST API, and let's call it order API regional. Okay, create the API. And now I have to create a resource. Let's call it order, create resource, and in this one, let me click it and create a method. This will be a post. Okay, post. And here, instead of a Lambda function, I'm going to choose a direct AWS service integration. I have to provide the region. It will be US East 1, the region I'm in. AWS service is going to be step functions. This subdomain, you leave it empty. For method, we're going to choose post. We'll leave it use action name. Action, it will be start execution. And for the execution role, we need to paste that role that we just created in IAM. So I'm going to paste it here. And that should be it. Let's save it. Okay, so now let's see, this should be fine. I also need the RN of my step functions, because that is you will see how I'm going to provide it to the API gateway. So let me go back, and this is the RN of my order processing state machine. Let me copy it, and just a moment. Okay, so let's go back to API gateway, and here you have this option to test the API, and you can and need to provide a request body, and the request body should look something like this. So you're going to provide the input for the state machine, which is going to be product. Let's add it as it should be, book, and payment method, let's make it just card. And the state machine RN that we just copied, we have to put that in. So the name my execution, it's optional. I've put it my execution, but you can put something else, and it will show up in the step functions logs. So this is the RN of the state machine that needs to be invoked, and let's click on test. Let's see what happens. And you see something happened, but we cannot see what. And for that, we're going to go back here to step function state machine. Let's refresh. And we're going to have a failed execution here. And if we look at it, it will be because the payment processing failed because I have provided just card instead of credit card. Okay, let's go back to API gateway, and what I'm going to do here, let me copy this in case I need. Let's go back to method execution, to integration request, and you see I use the start execution. The start execution means that the step functions state machine will be executed asynchronously. I want to execute it synchronously, so wait for a response from the state machine. And for that, I'm going to modify this action and put start sync execution and save it. And now if I go back and click on test, you see in the previous invocation here, you could not see more details in the response body. But now if I execute it again, I should have more details here. It should wait for a response from the step function state machine. And also let's correct this, make it correct. So credit card, and this time it should be successful. So click on test, and you see I have much more details now. And I should have something here, the output. Status code 200 body order fulfillment triggered. So it actually reached the last Lambda function and it was successful. If we go back here to the order processing state machine and look at the logs, the last one here is successful. If we look at the execution log, you see all blocks here are green. So this is how we invoked it from here, from this testing functionality. But we can invoke it from Postman as well. And for that, let me save this. Okay, and let me publish it. So, deploy the API to a dev stage. Deploy. Okay, so this is my invoke URL. Let me copy it. Now I'm going to start Postman. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this tool. With Postman, you can send requests to APIs and test them. So this is my endpoint. I have to add order after it, and I have to make it a post. And then I'm going to paste in this code, this body. The input, the name, and the state machine RN, and now I can send my request to the API gateway through this post method. And if I click on send, let me see what happens. So actually I think I have to bring this up. So yes, here it is, the response that I get. So you have here the output. This is I'm receiving from the Lambda function, order fulfillment function triggered. If I would make any changes here, like change the book to something else, so it's not a valid product, send the request, and I will get back a failed execution. So this is pretty much it, how you would do the integration between API gateway and step function state machines. It was very simple. In the integration request, you see we have specified AWS service as step functions. You can do the action sync execution or normal execution, an asynchronous execution. You have to provide an IAM role, and that's about it. So hopefully this was interesting and you learned something new today. If you like the video, click on the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you soon with another video here on the channel. Have an awesome day.